Okay. Thank you for dealing with me being late.
Of course.
Okay. Any questions before we actually jump into it?
No, I think we're good if we get caught up. We'll just redo a question.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect.
I love it. All right. We'll take it off then. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Transform Tales, the podcast where we explore the power of our change in our lives in communities. I'm your host, Brooke Addis, and in each episode, we'll be chatting with inspiring individuals about transformation they've experienced, whether this is in their personal lives, careers, or the communities they serve. And today, I have a very special guest. Name's Max. Max, tell us about yourself.
Hey, Brooke. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me here. I am based in Pittsburgh. I'm an executive coach. In my free time, I do a lot of woodworking. So always like to stay busy.
I do know that you do woodworking, and every time you bring it up, I will say thank you for the cutting board you made me. And I do use it, ladies and gentlemen.
That's the important thing. That's the important thing. A lot of people I make the cutting boards for, they're like, I'm going to put this on the wall. I'm never going to use it. And I was like, that's not the purpose. Please take a knife and cut whatever you are on the cutting board.
Yeah.
It's meant to be used.
First thing I used it for was fajita Fridays with my family. I'm pretty sure I texted
You
you
did,
the night.
you did, yep.
And I said, okay, here it is. Well, thank you for being here.
Of course.
I know that you were very busy and sought after.
I'll always
so
make the time for you.
appreciate that. And it's an honor. So glad we could be here
Aw.
filming for my first time in the Avenue Workspace of
It's
Studio
really
Me,
great studio, yeah.
which
Cameras
more,
everywhere.
more people need to know about. So
Oh, yeah.
let's plug that. But again, let's get it rolling. So let's look back at your childhood, the dreams you had, thinking of where you are today. Is what you're doing, executive coaching, what you would imagine when you were, say, 6 or 7 years old?
Short answer, no. Long answer, kind of, sort of. My dad was a immigrant from Poland.
Okay.
And he worked in the steel mill industry. So I knew how to use construction tools since I was like 10, 11.
That sounds safe.
And incredibly safe. I mean, I still have, for the camera, I have all 10 fingers.
Math wasn't included, but definitely.
Math was not included. But I always thought I'd do something in the trades because my dad taught me a lot of plumbing, electrical, drywall, et cetera, et cetera. And I think I just didn't know that there was much outside of that. And with where I'm at now, I think you can see like an extension of the work that I did growing up in the trades through woodworking, right? It's take a raw material and turn it into a cutting board, a piece of furniture, chopsticks, et cetera, et cetera. But if you take that same build it mindset, I think a lot of entrepreneurs or a lot of builders will build a product, right? I want to build a software to help with automation, to help with efficiency. I like to view the work that I do as an executive coach as a builder of people, right? Helping somebody go from individual contributor to manager, manager to leader, or oftentimes with a lot of the work I do with founders, from founder, the job of doing, to CEO, the job of leading. So that's kind of how I look back at, little 5-year-old Max and say, the dots are messy. It's a interesting path, but they still kind of make sense now.
I do think it is cool that you still have an appreciation and respect for woodworking because it is obviously a dying art form that we're hoping gets a resurgence.
Hopefully.
Because blue collar isn't what it used to be. But yeah, again, thank you for my cutting board.
Of course.
Let's talk about you a little bit more. Tell me about, obviously I know things about you that people listening might not or watching. I hope you're watching.
Yeah.
Where did you start? What was the first job you ever had?
Oh, the first job, like the true first job.
The first
like teenage job.
I am feeling, you might not even have filled out an I-9. It might have been like a family, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like real first, you were like, oh crap, I have to
Yeah.
wake up today.
Yeah. Well, again, I was son of a Polish immigrant, and I think I was 15.
Okay.
And
Illegal.
but I was 15. I was in high school, and we were talking about this thing called university, and I was like, I have no idea what this is. So I go home and I talk with my parents, and I was like, tell me about university. Can I go? And both my parents were like, we want you to have that opportunity. Neither of my parents had gone to university. So they're like, we want you to have that opportunity. We can't afford to send you. So my first job, and I think this explains a lot about myself, is as a 15-year-old, I started a landscaping business with my older brother.
Okay.
And we scaled that over 6 years. And that paid for 95% of my college costs to attend Pitt.
Wow.
Because I was like, and again, 15-year-old Max, back of the napkin math, I was like, I can wash dishes at a pizzeria all day, every day, and I'm not going to have enough money to make it. So I was like, how do I make those numbers work? And, I was a hard worker, and we had, lawnmowers and everything in the garage. I was like, what if I just start mowing lawns, and that turned into that and spring cleanings and fall cleanups and a lot of mulching and really anything that anyone needed with their landscape needs. And again, I scaled it over 6 years. My sister joined year 3 because that's when we were making, in her words, a shit ton of money. And she's like, I'm now a 50-50 partner because I have to save up for university too. And that was my first job.
Wow.
Yeah.
Always been a little bit of an entrepreneur, huh?
That's when I got the entrepreneurial bug, some might say. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Is this business still in operations today without you?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. People ask that question a lot. I built the business to serve a purpose, which was to test, can I afford university? And once I graduated, I had my sister run it for one more season afterwards, but then, she had her post-university life, and I was like, we serve the purpose, and I made sure that my clients locally had other kind of landscapers to go to, but it served its purpose, and we ended up sunsetting the business.
Good for you.
Yeah.
A successful exit.
One might call it. Yeah.
I love it. Put that on the resume, which we love.
Throw that on the LinkedIn.
That have you posted about this? This would be an incredible LinkedIn post.
I think on my website, one of the first articles might be something I wrote years ago about, I think it was either like business or leadership lessons from running a landscaping company. I have something somewhere. It's either on my website or
I need to do some digging.
Yeah, some digging through the archives. But tying this to woodworking, that's actually a post I need to do eventually because I think there's definitely an article around how woodworking made me a better COO. Because if you think about it, it's logistics, it's order operations, and everything else. And there's a lot of transferable skills from woodworking, building a piece of fine furniture, cutting board, et cetera, and running the operations of a business model to make sure that it's firing on all cylinders. But that's a future post.
Yeah. That's scheduled for another date.
Another date, yeah. That's to be written.
Which I love. So you graduate from Pitt.
Yep.
What do you do?
Yeah, I got into this entrepreneurship fellowship called Venture for America. We would explain it as Teach for America, but for startups.
Okay.
So instead of going to a school and teaching, we would go to, I think, one of 13 cities and work at a startup. And for some reason, the lovely folks at the University of Alabama at Birmingham were launching this new accelerated program. And they're like, let's hire a 22-year-old to run it as the founding director.
Perfect.
And I saw the job opportunity, and what was going through my mind, Brooke, was I was like, this is a dream opportunity for me to have when I'm 50, like 50 years old, serial entrepreneur, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact that I could have that at 22, I was like, I'm going to shoot my shot. I'm going to put an application in. And I did. And what I found out after I got hired was the associate director, Holly, played a key role in me getting hired because she was the first person I interacted with. They were thinking about extending an offer to somebody else. And then Holly insisted, she's like, you have to talk with Max. You have to look at Max again. I think he might be good for the fit. That came into play. I had gone through a lot of the innovation entrepreneurial programming at Pitt during my undergrad. So I had a lot of experience from kind of the student side of things. I also had an internship at Pitt's Tech Transfer Office. And then the third thing, I didn't know this at the time. I found this out a few months into the job. UAB put together a 5-year strategic plan, and they selected 2 universities as aspirational peers. One of them was Pitt main campus. So when I got there, a lot of people were very interested about, tell me about your experience at Pitt. Tell me more details. And I was like, why is everyone so curious about this? And it's because it was one of the universities they were trying to model after.
So you were bridging the gap, basically.
I was bridging the gap from, this is going to hurt to say, from one steel city to another. Because both had deep roots in the steel industry. But yeah, that brought me there. And then I loved my time there. I worked with 4 populations. So I worked with students trying to come up with ideas in their dorm room. Faculty, I think back then UAB was like top 15 in NIH or research funding.
Wow.
Healthcare, so we had a hospital system attached to the university. So a lot of doctors, clinicians, surgeons worked with them. And then also we did some community work. So I worked with founders just in and around the greater Birmingham area. And it was really phenomenal. We launched a student accelerator program that we had one of the student teams making, I think, $30,000 a month by the time they got out of it, which was bananas. I prototyped a faculty accelerator program because we were trying to figure out how to get those commercialization efforts more further along. Part of that was finding the right partner to help with STTR and SBIR grants. The other part was figuring out how do we actually equip these faculty PIs with either the business expertise or, in my opinion, the business operator to partner with to move forward. And then last but not least, on the staff side of things, I worked with the chief innovation officer to help build out this innovation bootcamp to help the clinicians experience design thinking, lean startup methodology, and other kind of things that either play into creativity or innovation to not only identify problems in a healthcare setting, but actually come up with how can we come up with software, process, and med device solutions, and actually either feed that to student teams, to faculty research, or just, again, process improvements they can make across the healthcare system. So very, very cool, very fun time there overall.
Well, I want to pause and go back to the fact 22 years old.
Yeah, guilty.
At 22 years old,
Yeah.
everything that you just said is not in the realm of what I think most people
No.
would think. Not even capability, just even like
No.
you said, it was a dream job for 50
Yeah.
with lots of tenure.
Yeah.
So
And you'll get a kick out of this because my aspirational kind of mentor with this was Greg Katikia, who did a lot of this at Pitt when I was a student. And I had put together a board of advisors. Greg was on it and everyone else to make sure, like, I am hungry, I'm hardworking, but I don't want to F this up. So I had a board of advisors to be able to figure out all the particulars. But going back to being 22 in this role, my team didn't know my age. A lot of people I worked with didn't know my age. People would constantly call me Dr. Polec because they assumed I had a PhD. People would ask me about my wife and my kids. And again, it was just one of those things where I'm like, I'm going to just avoid continuing this conversation and let you believe that I am,
whatever you
in my
think I
30s,
am.
40s, or
Yeah.
what have you. One of the fun things I did for the Student Accelerator program, it was a 10-week program, and I think it was week 7 or 8, because everyone who was in that accelerator program was between the age of, I think, 19 to, I think our oldest person was in their late 30s.
Okay.
And, this was about 3/4 of the way through the program. So I had met them. I had proven that we could give them value. They were all making really good progress. I had a fun time and I said, I want you all to guess my age. And people were guessing, oh, you're 33, you're 37. Someone's like, you're 40 and twice divorced. And I was like, not at all. But when I told them my age, I kid you not, one of the students did not believe it. He jumped on the table. He's like, there's no effing way. There's no effing way. You can't be that young.
Did you have to pull receipts? Did you get the
I had to
birth
show
certificate?
my license. Yeah.
Okay.
I had to be like, here's proof. Please stay in the program. It's a good program. You're making a lot of, forward traction, everything else. But that was always a fun little moment. The way I would do it is, again, I would establish myself first. I can bring value. I'm credible. And then on the later half, kind of make it into a guessing game. Because, again, ageism is very real. And people are always going to look at me and say, you're too young, until I hit this magical age where all of a sudden I'm too old. So that was something I was very mindful about starting in that role. Because that's, again, it's bananas to have that opportunity as a 22-year-old.
Well, and I think that speaks a lot to the whole subject of talent versus tenure. I'm sure if you went back to that role when you were 50, multiple different roles under your belt, already having, or even if you didn't have that experience, it would have been completely different. And some of those
Yeah.
questions with people saying twice a divorce, it wouldn't be an ask anymore.
Yeah,
It would
yeah.
that whatever they came up with in their mind would be exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So, is that program still happening?
That's a good question. I had hired an associate director, Lydia, who ran the program, I think another 3 cohorts after I left.
Okay.
UAB's wonderful, but it is, like most universities, bureaucratic. And
Mhm.
I stayed there until the bureaucracy got the best of me. And I said, I think I might be better suited elsewhere. So I had left and gotten back into the startup world. I was a operator at a consumer electronics startup. But Lydia ran the program, I think another 3 cohorts. And then there were some changes at the university where, the business school was building their programming and there were some other things going on. So that kind of over time got absorbed into other programs, initiatives happening across the university. But it was one of those things where, I look back at the founders I met, the people I met, and a lot of them are still, really good friends that I still talk to and do calls with to this day. So, yeah.
I love that. So I love when people have worked in any space and they have someone that they're still connected to there.
Oh, yeah.
Love that you left on your own terms as well, because politics can really put a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where I was so passionate about the work and the impact, and I hit this inflection point where I spent more time with paperwork and red tape and in meetings than actually working with entrepreneurs. And once that happened, I was like, I want to make sure this program's still set up for success without me, but I knew that, I was going to be looking for my next step, my next journey, and everything else.
Something else.
Yeah.
So that pivotal moment kind of happened for you. I'm sure it was months of buildup.
Yeah.
Probably not just a one instance.
Yeah.
But what was the immediate move? Did you know? Was it get closer to where my root? Like, where did you go? What did you do?
Yeah. When I knew I wanted to leave her after UAB,
So
or kind of a journey of both.
Kind of both. So like you were like, hey, I think I want to leave. What was in your thought process? What were you looking at?
Yeah.
Were you ready to be a director of another?
Well, I knew I wanted to leave. This would have been summer 2018.
Okay.
There was a series of events that happened, and I kind of shifted kind of my viewpoints on the role. The tough thing about that timing was I had just hired the associate director Lydia to the team, and we had our fall program we were marketing for and getting that geared up, and that would run through end of year 2018. So I was like, I don't want to leave with someone I just hired. I don't want to leave with this program where I sold a lot of people to participate on it and not be there. So I said, I'm going to stay here until the end of the year. Okay. And I'm going to do the best work I can and then find that next opportunity. I did start kind of putting some feelers out in Birmingham for my next job. The tough thing, though, was with working at UAB, and UAB is also known as the university that ate Birmingham because it covers the whole one half of the city, and it's just everywhere. So I had a very community-facing role. So I had to figure out, how can I continue to do my best work at UAB while find the next opportunity. And it actually wasn't until I'd given notice at UAB in December, I was interviewing for some roles. One of them was at this construction tech SaaS startup for a VP of growth role. And I remember I was leaving that office and I walked by the office of one of the founders that went through our program, Fledging, and I ran into the CEO there, and he's like, oh, what are you doing here at this time? I was like, oh, I'm interviewing with your neighbor for a growth role. And he looks at me, pauses, smiles, and he's like, we need a director of growth. And I said, we should have a conversation. And that actually dovetailed and parlayed into kind of my next step. So I did a bunch of conversations with them. They were around, I think like 60,000, maybe 75,000 in monthly revenue. And they're like, we want to raise a seed round. We want to supercharge growth. And we need someone who can figure out how to solve that problem or seize that opportunity. So I then joined the team and did a lot of work with them throughout 2019. So that was kind of how I got to that next step.
I just want to clarify because I might have misheard you. So you're walking to an interview you have scheduled, come across someone that you already know.
Yeah.
Probably go to that interview anyways, and then get a job from the other group?
Close. I was leaving the interview.
Okay.
I was leaving the interview, and the CEO at the other consumer electronics startup was like, what are you doing here? And we had that whole conversation. Okay. He's like, oh, we could use someone to lead growth. Yeah. So yeah, very serendipitous.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
It's good to have a face that people know and be out and connected. And
yeah. Which is also fun, and this will kind of like timestamp this conversation. I'm also going to be a speaker for Birmingham Small Business Week next week on Cinco de Mayo. So
wow.
Yeah. So I'll be able to re-engage with some folks in Birmingham because it's a lovely city, hard workers, and it's also a very like Southern hospitality, relationship-driven city. So there's a lot of people that, I try to make it back to Birmingham like once a year, every 2 years. And there's still some of my best friends and greatest collaborators out that way. So really, really cool city.
That's so cool. When did you find this out?
Huh?
When did you find this out?
I found out, I think last week.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, because I know someone at city government. I saw she posted they were looking for speakers. And I was like, you know what? I'll put an application in. And I forgot about it. And then I got an email last week and I was like, I'm speaking virtually. I'm part of like a panel for a virtual lunch and learn. But I got the email and I was both like overjoyed and then also worried because I was like, this is so much fun. This is so great. I can interact with some people back in Birmingham. But at the same time, I was like, I can't fly back that day. And then I saw on the email virtual and I was like, okay, that's perfect. I can make that work.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, so you're working at a startup, which is obviously you had passion for. You were the director of multiple cohorts.
Yeah.
How did you help that company grow?
Oh, that's a great question. So, what was wonderful about fledging is we had some established growth and we had some big challenges in front of us. So, my first two kind of big projects, my first 6 months there was we have to supercharge revenue and we have to raise our seed round. So, both of those are also kind of tied together, right? Because the more revenue we're bringing in, the better of an investment thesis we can make for investors. For revenue, the golden egg that we had found was we were selling at the time through eBay under a different brand name, our website, direct to consumer, and then we had a few distribution partners, mostly like tech repair shops, you break, I fix kind of types.
Yeah, okay.
And the golden goose we found was we need to be on Amazon. We need to figure it out. And the CEO had the conversation with me and he's like, do you think you could do that? And I was like, I have no effing clue, but I'm going to try and I'm going to become a master at this algorithm. And I'll get there in a second. On the investment side, they had been trying to raise from local investors in either the city of Birmingham or across the state of Alabama, and they were having no luck. And what we did going into when I joined the team in January 2019, was we kind of revamped and tried to reinstigate those conversations. And we reignited those conversations in January. We closed the round. It was a $1.1 million seed round in April. And a lot of it was just figuring out how to better tell the investment story. So I remember, I'll share this one example. We were talking with an investor who actually became our lead investor after many other conversations, but we finished up the conversation. And at the end, he said, call us when you've launched your third product. And I leave the room with the CEO. And I said, you know what the fuck's wrong with that? And the CEO was like, we have 6 products in market. And I said, exactly. So we went back and we workshopped the messaging, we workshopped the pitch. I actually have a Google Doc. I share this with some founders who are kind of going through the fundraising journey. I think we revamped our pitch deck 40 sometimes, our pro forma 6 times. We had like a startup one pager, which basically acted as a reading deck. We revamped that, I think, 9 times.
Wow.
But it was one of those things where we thought it was a little ridiculous is too strong of a word, but we were kind of just taken aback of how difficult it was to raise because we were cash flow positive. We were making, a bunch of money. We had 6 products out in market. But eventually we were able to raise. And a big part of that was us better telling the story, making those iterations. And we were talking with so many of the local players across Birmingham and Alabama. What we did was we just got them all in a room and said, hey, we're just going to do an investor sync and just, kind of give everyone an update in this group setting of where we're at. And a lot of the bigwigs in Alabama came, they sat down, they looked at each other like, I didn't know you were also talking to fledging. I didn't know either. And that really helped us get some leverage to close the round because initially we wanted to raise, I think it was 900 or 950,000. We closed at 1.1 because we were oversubscribed. And at that point, we're like, we'll take the money because it's hardware. Hardware's hard. Hardware's capital intensive, and we'll make that happen. So that was the fundraising piece. Going back to Amazon, I learned a lot. I learned too much about Amazon as an algorithm. But the big thing was, and this was something I was very excited about, I grew Amazon to $1 million sales channel in 8 months.
Wow.
I had launched us on it in January, and I think we broke $90,000 in that channel in monthly sales. I want to say August. So it was one of those things that also helped us tell a incredible story about justifying the demand for our products, because we went from $60,000, $75,000 in monthly revenue to close to about, when we were closing the round, around like 125, 130. And again, we would just catch up with investors every month and say, hey, we're making more money. We're selling more product. We're shipping to more countries. Are you in yet? Are you in? Are you out? Come on. So yeah, that was a lot of the first 6 months there. Kind of like the first half of my journey there was on those 2 things, fundraising and revenue.
I love the strategy of basically making yourself a commodity that like people wanted.
Yeah.
And was that the intention of getting them all in the room, or was it just easier and more efficient? Like, did you in the back, I'm sure to some level, you're probably like, maybe they'll be like, oh, we're competing with other people for money. Maybe we should get it now.
It was, it was very much so like a FOMO attempt. I think fear of missing out. Because we were talking with so many people. And again, my assumption was, I didn't know if those investors were also talking with one another. and that kind of played into it. We're like, we'll try it. It also saved us time because we were spending a lot of time just, doing investor communications and trying to nurture those leads. So it was something that both could test an assumption of, can we provide a sense of urgency, but also can we just save ourselves some time so that we can focus on building the business? Because I was trying to grow revenue. We were trying to raise the round. We had just got accepted into a investment accelerator in Birmingham. So our team was spread very thin because we're trying to do 3 full-time jobs in, the 60, 80-hour work weeks we were working back then, which is not easy. So it was a hypothesis of, can we, again, make that fear of missing out, and it panned out very nicely. Yeah, it worked out for us.
Well, that's great. While you were there and you're taking on a whole new skill set, obviously there's transferable skills from what you were doing, but you're taking on a new skill set of probably a little more direct collaboration of people who are trying to succeed versus like you helping someone else's idea. You're now like passionate and in it on a different level. Did you learn anything interesting about yourself that you didn't know before?
Yeah, I think 2 things come up. I think one of the best strategic attributes someone can have is just an openness and willingness and eagerness to learn. Because again, my family had like a small like eBay business growing up where we would go to yard sales, buy stuff and flip it on eBay. But that was like the extent of my e-commerce experience. And when I saw the big opportunity on Amazon, I was like, I have no idea where to start, but I will learn, I will study, I will have phone calls, and I'll pick this apart. And I was really able to get a very good understanding of how the Amazon algorithm works and make us a whole lot of money by doing that. So I think that was something that came up was, if you really focus on a challenge or a problem and just chase after it and really try to obsess over it, like it's really remarkable what you can learn. The other thing too was, still to this day, I don't call myself a salesperson, but I'm very good at sales. And I think
that's relationships.
It's relationships, but it's also problem solving. Like I think when we were closing our seed round, that was sales. It's, you have all of these investment opportunities, and this is why it would be stupid of you to miss ours. On Amazon, it was, again, a different kind of sales. It's figuring out, what does the consumer look for? How do we gamify for the Amazon algorithm and really kind of balance those 2 competing interests? Because we can over-index on the algorithm and rank well, but then it's not readable by the consumer. So we had to find that happy medium. And then another thing that played into like the second half of my time at Fledging was, I kind of wore like the hat of talent. So I recruited everybody. And again, that's a form of sales to say, we can't pay the best. Hardware's hard. You'll work at a startup. The hours suck. But we're looking for people eager to, build hardware at the same kind of level of quality as Apple. And that really resonated with people. And we were able to build, an incredible team and bring on some incredible people. And then also going back to distribution partnerships, me and the CEO and one of our channel partner heads closed one of the big 3 computer part distributors global as an exclusive partnership. They white labeled our product and sold it. And I was on the phone, I was in the boardroom, and I remember, I have to omit some of the details here, but we had the boardroom meeting with the CEO and COO of that company, and then we had a lunch afterwards. And the CEO was coming off in a way that was not conducive to the meeting. Okay. To a certain level, and I can't be specific here, but they were coming off to a certain level rude. And I remember we took separate cars to the lunch, and I said, listen, you were coming off this way with the COO. We need to fix that at lunch. I need you to make sure that COO loves you by the end of this lunch. And here are a couple ways to try to go about it. And one of the things that was wonderful about working with that CEO is he loved feedback. He craved feedback, and he did a 180 going into that lunch, and we closed the deal. That same CEO gave me like one of the wildest compliments ever. He said, Max, you can slap me across the face and I'll thank you afterwards. And I was like, what does that mean? What it meant was when you're at that executive level, people won't tell you that your shit stinks. So it was one of those things where I would be very blunt, but coming from a place of caring with my feedback and say, listen, if you keep doing this, it's going to hurt you in this capacity, or it's going to hurt the business in this capacity. And I was very honest, but thoughtful with my feedback. So again, I would be blunt, but it would always be, if we make these changes, this will help grow the team, the business, revenue, customers, and stuff like that. So that's also been a little bit of a lesson that has been invaluable for me. Because again, I work now with a lot of executives, and what do they crave? It's real, authentic feedback so that they can improve. Yeah.
You're a great storyteller. Actually, if I ever need to be interviewed, can you do it for me? I feel like you're making
Just
me sound...
tell me the Transform Lab story. Yeah. I'll be like, I've been working there since I was 5 years old. And
which I love.
yeah.
I think that's incredible. I think it's really cool. I think everything you've told us up to this point really gets you to where you are today.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this is already a term that people use or if, I'm on the brink of things here. Would you say you don't have title intimidation then? Like when you meet someone?
Oh, I don't give a fuck. No.
Okay.
Yeah. We're all people.
I agree, but I've recently had this conversation. So I know this because I know you, but you attend a lot of community events, especially with startups, and you support me, which is great. But I've seen events where there's no name tags. I've seen them where it's just a name. It's just a company.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen people title fishing. They're like, who are you at X company?
Yeah.
And are you worth my time to talk to? And I learned the hard way in a previous role that sometimes stepping over some people isn't helpful.
No.
And that plays into the relationship building. So it is good to know that you right up front, you're like, hey, I know you're running this place and we're trying to do a deal with you. And no. So let's talk about what you're doing. Can we talk about what you're doing now?
I assume so.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
We can.
So, pardon my French, but what the F word, what the actual F word is executive coaching.
Yeah.
Because very buzzwordy, I've heard negative, I've heard positive, nothing but glowing reviews from you.
Yeah.
About your work. But
I try.
I've heard horror stories as well as someone who collects a big paycheck and isn't useful. So give it to us. Tell us the truth.
Yeah, I think, thank you for using the word buzzword because I think that's important. I'm going to anchor this around definitions because like if we say something like leadership, I would define that different than you. Yeah. It might be similar. There might be some themes, but there's going to be some variance. And same thing if you ask, how do you define leadership, executive presence, a sturdy leader, a strong leader, everyone's going to have varying kind of qualities or characteristics that they share. So I love to walk through this with people that are considering a coach well in advance of the discovery process, just so someone knows a better idea what their options are, what they might consider. And I'm going to be looking a little bit at my whiteboard, or not whiteboard, my clipboard, just to make sure I don't get this wrong. But just to name 4 things off the top, right? There's consulting, there's advising, there's mentoring, and then there's cheerleading. The way that I define these things is consulting is you bring me in as the consultant and I do it for you, right? Okay. Max, we don't have a CRM. We need to get one installed. We need all the processes. I am a CRM consultant. I show up. I get you set up with HubSpot, with Salesforce, and then I'm done and I'm out. So I'm coming in, I'm doing it for you, I'm fixing it for you, et cetera, et cetera. Advising. This is someone you go to ask for advice. They advise you on what you ought to do. Mentoring. This is something where, someone you go to, you ask for advice, and they typically share some kind of story or some kind of parable. This was what I learned in my experience, hoping that you take away the best practice, the lesson learned, and you apply it to your situation now, right? So mentoring is very much so through story. Advising is I'm going to give you advice. And then cheerleading, which is I cheer you on. I say, go, go, go. I don't know if you're doing the right thing. I don't know if it's working. I'm just on the sidelines saying, MAX, let's go Max. And I share that because there's a lot, and there's nothing wrong with any of these, but there's things that we have to keep in mind with the context, because for those 4, consulting, advising, mentoring, and cheerleading, these are all dependent on the other person, right? For me to grow or fix the problem, I go to the consultant. They do it for me. For me to grow, I'm kind of outsourcing some of my critical thinking to an advisor to tell me what to do, or a mentor to help guide me along the way. And then for the cheerleading, it's, I want a pep talk. I want someone to say, rah, rah, rah. That's who I go to.
With the pom-poms? Do you have
pom-poms? I'm not a cheerleader. I'm not an executive cheerleader. I want to be very clear on that.
Fair. All right.
No pom-poms at the CEO strategy. But the other 2 distinctions is I also get a lot of people making the joke of, oh, are you just like a therapist for founders or therapist for executives? And the distinction I make between therapy and coaching is therapy is looking back to diagnose, to understand. If we had to kind of come up with like something to compare it to, it's archaeology, right? It's looking through the ruins, the past, the fossils to figure out, what happened to us previously that's showing up today and might be indicative of how we show up in the future, right? I'm not a therapist. I'm not trained in that way. I don't have the credentials. And if I work with somebody who needs a therapist instead of a coach, I have people I can recommend them to, and I make that recommendation. The difference with that and coaching is we're looking at the present moment and where you want to go moving forward. So this might be, Max, I want to triple revenue in 5 years. Max, I'm a founder. I'm doing all the things. I need to build a system where I'm leading people, managing processes. I need to make that shift from founder to CEO. So again, coaching is very much so here we are now and where you want to go. And if you were to like just kind of break it down into a word, coaching is movement, right? It's figuring out where we are, doing an audit, where you want to go, connecting those dots. I like using the word movement. I like using the word thinking partner. And it's also based on this understanding that, again, if you come to an advisor, you are missing something. You are missing the advice or the direction to succeed. Executive coaching, or coaching in its purest form, as kind of broken down by the International Coaching Federation, is based on this assumption that you have everything you need to succeed. And how I show up is more or less contracting the session with you. So figuring out what is a topic or a subject you want to talk about in like a 50-minute session, asking you these open-ended questions to explore options, explore avenues, and explore kind of different things you might be able to do. And typically through that conversation, we have an insight, a takeaway, if you want to be very buzzwordy about it, aha moment. Oh, I didn't think about that. And then we capture that as an insight and turn that into an action item, right? I like to say too that ineffective coaching is effectively a nice conversation. Oh, I had a conversation. It was so lovely. But what you really have to make sure happens is that hits action, because I don't work with executives to say, let's have a lovely conversation and you pay my invoice. It's, we have a thoughtful conversation. We explore options. We figure out the next step, and then I hold you accountable to it. Simply put, the way that I think about executive coaching with a lot of the folks that I work with is I give them both the space to dream big, but also the accountability, and I hold their feet to the fire to actually work on it and make it happen. Because that's what you're paying someone for, right? We're not talking about, I want these incremental changes. I want this transformative. I want this explosive change, right? I want to triple revenue. I want to save the business. I need to make sure that my business can thrive for, the next set of leaders and generations to come and stuff like that. So that's how I would define and answer your question of what the fuck is executive coaching.
What the hell? Well, I think that was very clear. I appreciate you doing it definition based too.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there are any questions left on what your viewpoint is, because I'm sure there are differing viewpoints on what coaching is, which I have also run into.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in different verticals or niche kind of markets of coaching, where because it can be there is like emotional, spiritual coaching, and then there's just different.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the title CEO strategy?
I think I wanted something that spoke more to the work that I was doing. And a lot of the work I did as I kind of slowly moved into executive coaching was strategic planning.
Okay.
So I was like, how do I kind of collaborate together what I'm doing? I'm working with executives, typically the CEO. We're doing strategic planning, figuring out how to, either save the business, grow the business, build out the team, et cetera, et cetera. And honestly, I came across the name. I was like, I like this. The website URL was open. It's very Googleable. It's a good keyword there.
You're in the ABC too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right at the beginning.
Exactly. I'm right at the beginning. And honestly, like, I'm awful at naming things. Like the landscaping business was Polec Landscaping. I did this brief thing during university where I made bow ties and pocket squares. That was called Fashion by Polec.
Okay.
And when I started because 5 years ago, I built first what was called Abstract Collective, which was more growth strategy. How do we start, build, and scale revenue through running experiments? And that over time blended into the CEO strategy. So it was one of those things where I was like, I suck at naming stuff, but I want something that I could be happy with. I think that makes sense for the brand. And once I came across the CEO strategy, I was like, I don't hate it. And I floated around with a lot of my peers and friends. They didn't hate it. And I was like, I could I can build a brand around this.
I love that. And being a brand is very important.
Yeah.
Well, wow, you've lived a lot of life in a short time. And I don't want to disclose to anyone. They're going to have to dig in.
Yeah.
No one's going to know how old you are.
I'm 45 and twice divorced.
Because you haven't said it while we're
I have not said my
good.
age, yeah.
No. Don't tell them. I know how old you're about to be, but I'm not disclosing that either.
45. That's the answer.
46, actually. He's lying. Thinking back on all of these different things that you've done, where you are today, how has technology been either a constraint, a catalyst, both? What has it done for you? What has it made harder for you? And speak to that for us.
I think by and large, it's been a catalyst, right? So I went remote before COVID happened. I went remote summer of 2019.
Okay.
So I was managing operations at Fledging. Again, we had our supply chain in Asia. We had our team members cross against 3 different time zones. I think we shipped to 130 some countries. So that was a real testament to, can I do the operations thing while the HQ is in Birmingham, Alabama? I'm living in Chicago and we have a team member in China. So I got a lot of practice. And again, that wouldn't have been possible without tools like Zoom, Slack, and everything else. The other thing too is when I started my own business 5.5 years ago, again, it started as growth strategy, and most of that playbook was digital marketing, right? So technology enabled us to be able to connect with leads, to run email experiments, to do outbound experiments, to host webinars virtually, and everything in between, SEO, Google AdWords, et cetera, et cetera. So again, that was an accelerant. And then this is kind of where there's 2 sides of this coin. There's, in a more virtual tech-enabled world, I've had a lot of opportunities to kind of expand who I can meet with, who I could do business with, right? Since starting my business, I've worked with founders, executives across 20 plus cities, most of them not cities I have lived in. And I've also done work in China, Luxembourg, and Italy. I gave a conversation with 10 founders in Italy working in space tech earlier this year. I think it was in January, February. And I'm so happy because that's the first presentation I could say that was truly out of this world. Jokes
that's
aside,
our clickbait.
That's our
that's
clickbait.
going on TikTok.
Yeah. But it's also one of those things where, like, I'm in Pittsburgh. I love this city. I love the community here, but it is a barrier because people are so attuned to how frictionless, hopping on a webinar is, or just, zooming in from either their office or their home. It's harder to be able to get people to show up in person, which I think, again, that's like a flip side to that. However, I think with like the What's Your Business Idea event series I run with Charles here at Innovate Pittsburgh, 2-minute elevator pitch showcase to highlight local founders, the events that you do and everything in between. I love that because we get, again, builders, founders, leaders together. And it's one of those things where we're actually, shaking hands, hanging out, enjoying food and drink, and building this thing called community. Like, that's something I try to do with the events that I run, which is have the event, but then also afterwards say, hey, like, it's dinner time. We all have to eat. Everyone's welcome. And the lovely thing was our last What's Your Business Idea event, which was a couple weeks ago in April, we had 2 founders pitch. We had like 15 or so people in attendance.
I was there.
And no, that was the one that was the one before.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But I was like, hey, like, if anyone wants to get dinner, like, we're a small group of us is going to go. We had 12 people at dinner. And it was lovely because everyone was like, kind of sharing ideas, sharing, how they could support one another. And again, it was just this thing where, yes, it was like business talk, but it was also people just being people and finding that organic community, which is always so important because I don't really care much for like the transactive nature of business. It's one of those things where, and I think you and I have talked about this, how can we build cool stuff with cool people, whether we call them friends, homies, what have you. But it's just one of those things where I think that's kind of what I'm trying to find more and more in the real world, in the physical world. So a little bit of a digression there about my view on technology, but here we are.
I mean, it's been both supportive and also led you to find new ways to interact with your community and the people you work with.
Yeah.
I love that you are one of the people that supports the growth of the city of Pittsburgh and always talking about it. And lots of things happen out of Innovate PGH, which is where we are today, everyone, in case anyone's wondering. So that's incredible. But let's talk about success.
Mm-hmm.
You've lived a lot of life, like I said.
Yeah.
How has your definition of success transformed, and what metrics or values have become more or less important to you over time?
Yeah. That's a wonderful question.
Yeah, you wrote it. It's really good.
Did I write that one?
I think that one was all you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think mine was simply, what is your definition of success now versus
So
before?
what you're saying is I took what you wrote and I yes-anded it.
Yes, and that is why you are the founder of the CEO strategy. And we tied it all together. Here we go.
And here we are. Again, going back to definitions, I think we all will answer, what does success look like, differently. I have this personal life principle, and there's a lot of good research that'll back this up. I think that relationships are all we have in the end. So it's one of those things. I don't care about the amount of money in my bank account. I don't care about, these vanity metrics of how much money I've raised, how much revenue is, or how many customers I served. I care more so about the people I meet along the way, the impact we have on one another, and everything else. So that's really where I try to hone in. And when you hear that, you're probably like, okay, it makes sense why you're an executive coach and you're using this language of, you want to be a builder, a supporter of people in their growth. I think the other interesting thing about success is I was on a podcast with Pitt, and they were Pitt students interviewing me, and they're like, "Do you feel like you've made it?" And I was like, "No, I don't think I ever will. I think I'm always in this kind of constant state of becoming. As I do more, have more impact, have more fun. What success looks like, what that next step is, what that quote unquote 5-year plan will always be in evolution, but." I think one of the themes that comes up is, am I having impact in my work? Another is, again, am I building meaningful relationships with people that I not only want to work with, but I want to spend time with? And then the third thing, I think there's this really interesting book. You learn a lot about leadership, despite the title. It's called The Inner Game of Tennis.
Okay.
And it's a book that's, as the title suggests, mostly about tennis. But on the last chapter, the author does this impeccable job of kind of talking about and contrasting competition and collaboration. And I love this because, I'm the son of a Polish immigrant. I've had countless people take bets on me, countless people support me. I simply wouldn't be where I'm at today without so many people spending their time, energy to support me. And the distinction that this author makes in the book is, a tennis player can view it as, I want to compete, I want to be the best in the world, or I want to collaborate and I want to rally with the best. Because when I rally with the best, that's also a forcing function for my own growth. And I think that's the way that I kind of view it is, I, on one hand, am very competitive, but it's not so I can beat an opponent. It's so that I can be better every single day thereafter. And there's also a really good book, I think it was written in the 1980s, on game theory called The Infinite Game. And the way that the author kind of breaks down the finite game and the infinite game is the finite game is played to be won. So again, there's clear rules, and the goal is, if there's the two of us playing, it's for me to win. The infinite game, the goal there is it's more loosey-goosey with the rules, but the end goal is to continue playing the game, right? And I think that's what I'm trying to do now with what I'm doing with executive coaching and building my own business. I love the work I do. I don't think I'm going to hit a point and say, I've done it, I've achieved it. I'm on Forbes, 40 under 40, and now I'm going to prison. That's a joke. But I really want to view it as, how can I continue playing the game and meet more people, have more impact, and also have more fun? So I think that's kind of, in a hodgepodge way, some of the ways that when I think about success, or I think about becoming, or I think about competition, collaboration, those are some of the things that come to mind. And again, I focus on that definition piece because that's how I view it. You might view it differently. Other people will view it differently. But I think the takeaway for someone listening is think back about what's important to them, what's driving them, and see how that shows up and comes into play in everything else.
Wow. You should write a book.
You don't say.
Yeah. Did you know? You knew I was gonna like.
I figured it was like a 50-50 coin flip here.
Okay. Have you written a book?
I have. Would you like me to share more about that book?
Yes. I would like you to tell everyone how you missed the opportunity when you had your initial discussion of the book coming out.
Yeah.
Tell them the title.
Many, many hats.
And he didn't wear a hat.
It's because I was trying to be professional, and and lead on the best foot. I thought about just bringing like a hamper of hats, but I only have 2 hats. So it was like a whole thing.
Okay.
But many, many hats. So I got my global coaching credential through the International Coaching Federation summer of last year. So summer of 2024. And I still do a lot of work with startup founders, but I've also kind of moved up on like the kind of company business food chain. Like I'm working now with, a local construction company or their succession planning that's making a few $100 million. I'm working also with a healthcare system in Florida. I think they make 1.2 billion.
Light work.
Yeah, there's a bunch of zeros after those numbers. And I wanted to do something to kind of bookend, the better part of a decade in startups. And I wanted to kind of get my ideas, my best practices, my lessons learned, all of which are opinions, into paper and share it with folks. So I ended up writing it. It's like I think like a 60, maybe 70 page book. I didn't want to waste people's time, so I focused on brevity, but it's 10 chapters. You can get a digital copy, and I don't want to make a dime off it. I haven't made a dime off it. I have people just do a donation to the Arc Alliance, which is an incredible nonprofit that does a lot of support and advocacy work for people with physical and intellectual disabilities in Eastern Pennsylvania. And all you have to do is do a $25 donation. I'll send you a signed PDF copy. It's not actually signed because it's a PDF, but yeah, that's a little bit about the book, and it's really resonated with people. I think it was really cool to make the announcement, have a lot of people who I know and also come out of the woodwork kind of get their own copy, and then just the testimonials, the conversations of folks who have read it and said, I am going to bring this to my incubator, bring this to my accelerator, or just really read that growth chapter 10 times because I'm trying to figure out how to supercharge revenue and stuff like that. So it's been a really fun little ride there, and a good way to be able to, again, pause and say, I've been in startups for so long. How do I get a lot of my thoughts, feelings, and opinions out of here and onto paper?
So should I get you a hat for Christmas or your birthday? Or
I'll take the cookies. I'll take the cookies.
Perfect.
Yeah.
This is incredible. I'm having a great time.
I'm having a blast.
So you've shared. Well, thank you for sharing that. I had to plug the book.
Yeah.
I needed people to know, tied into the nonprofit. There was just so many good things. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, self-serving myself for you. I wasn't self-serving. I don't know what that was. Friends supporting friends.
Friends supporting friends.
So you shared a lot of your work. It's at the intersection of change.
Yep.
And depending on how an organization acts, change can be used for growth or decline.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. I think there's a quote. I just had a article go live earlier this week on recession-proofing your business, and the thing that everyone's been texting me about is they love this quote I used. It's if you don't like change, you sure as hell aren't going to like extinction.
Oh.
And I think, again, the opportunity for growth, the opportunity for change, the opportunity for innovation all comes from how we act in times of uncertainty, how we act when things are shifting. And I wanted just to kind of riff on 3 super quick case studies from some of the clients I've worked with recently. And just for everyone on the podcast, like I'm purposely anonymizing this because of confidentiality agreements and everything else, but it still kind of hits on that big idea. I worked with a life science company that was really kind of on the crux of we might go under. And they were running out of cash. Their investors wouldn't give them any money, and their costs were out of whack. And I worked with the CEO to really do an audit and figure out what was what. And the big 3 things we did in the first 6 months of this engagement is we did a 12-month trailing P&L statement, aka looking at where all the money's going. We were able to cut their monthly burn rate from around $80,000 to $30,000 per month.
Wow.
They were spending a lot of money on stuff they didn't need to be spending money on, but that's also, not uncommon for your costs to get out of whack. They were selling a product, and they had proprietary technology that better served itself in the market as a kind of contract service manufacturer. So we pivoted there. We did some testing. We're like, can we get contract service contracts? And we were able to close very quickly 4 and 5-figure deals and ultimately grow that to 6-figure deals. So we fixed that. We fixed the revenue side. And then we took that story of we cut costs. We're now shifting from product to service, and we're making a lot of money. We need $300,000 in a bridge round. Can you help us out so we can survive and ultimately grow the business? And the business is still alive and thriving to this day. And again, it was one of those things where there was a level of uncertainty. there's a level of change, and it's how do we show up and how do we act in that. And also on top of all of that, this was all happening during COVID. I started working with the founder, I think July of 2020. So again, change, it can be for growth, decline, innovation, or just a disaster. Another client that I'm working with, or I have worked with, I should say, it's a construction company working on their succession planning. And, they have a handful of leaders that are retiring out anywhere between 1 to 7 years. And, this has been a company that's been around for a long time. They want to be around for longer and be able to continue to thrive. And that's something that's very interesting because, again, you're meeting the leaders who are moving out where they're at. You're helping them identify successors. And there's so much uncertainty, right? It's, have I picked the right successor? Do I know what to train and coach them on? Am I making progress? What else can come out of left field? And I remember I was working with one leader there, and he said, well, Max, I have 20 some buckets that my job hits on. And I said, well, let's make a list of those buckets. And I worked with him. And again, if we think about uncertainty and de-risking this, we put together the list of buckets. The frequency, is this daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually? The KPI, if this bucket is handled successfully, what does that look like? How do we measure it? And then also, this person is planning to retire in 3 years. For their successor, how can we get them exposed to those buckets or action items? How can we get them trained on those? And also, how can we test them to make sure that before we hand over these 20 buckets, these 20 action items, that we've actually thoroughly tested, yes, we chose the right person. Yes, they are performing well. And yes, we've equipped them for success. So again, it's one of those things that for succession planning, the running joke is too many people wait until the last minute to actually do something about it. And what's great about this firm is, they're saying, we want to be proactive this time because they haven't done it before and it had caused issues with their business model. So that's another case study. And the third one, I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but again, a healthcare system that's trying to figure out how can we be more innovative. We have a lot of inefficiencies. We have a lot of things that are causing issues with, excuse me, my phone is going off.
It's because you're busy.
That's because I've got a training in 15 minutes. But it was one of those things where we're like, how can we best equip our clinicians to be more creative, find problems, and use design thinking? And that was one of those things where, again, a lot of healthcare systems we're on fire, everything's fine, we're fine. And a key leader there was like, we want to be proactive about this. And we also understand that we can't just tell a clinician to be more innovative. We have to give them the support, the process, the tools, the training. And we did this boot camp program and had, I think, 30 clinicians go through cohorts. And it was one of those things where, again, we're not only just saying, be more creative, be more innovative. We're giving them the tools, the support, the structure. And that led to just this incredible surge of problems being identified and processes being tried and software is being piloted and everything else. So again, change is, if handled well, I think an incredible thing. And if handled proactively, it could be something that can help you grow your business. It could help you find new products. And again, it could really be used as a tool of innovation, or you could ignore it and have everything on fire and see how that serves you in your business. I don't recommend.
Not the way to go. This has been incredible.
It has.
I'm lucky to know you. I wanted to say that.
Me too.
Yeah. So I really appreciate it. We covered so much. I hope that this gets out to people that you might not be connected with yet or have questions about coaching and how it's benefited you. And that is my last question for you before we sign off.
Yeah.
You are a coach.
Yep.
Do you still have a coach?
I do.
Should everyone have a coach?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll answer the first one and then the second one. I've had a coach, Raymond, since February 2020. Incredible impact he had on me personally, professionally, my business. And through Raymond, I learned, hey, how can I be more coach-like? How can I explore this? Is executive coaching an actual job? And without him, I wouldn't have had so much growth myself, but also I wouldn't have probably stumbled my way into executive coaching and working with leaders in this capacity. So yes, I have my own coach. I actually had my most recent call with Raymond earlier this morning.
Oh.
So we do it weekly on Wednesdays. Should everyone have a coach? It depends. What I try to push people on is thinking about the opportunity or the challenge they're trying to solve and make sure it's a big, audacious, ambitious opportunity because like if you're a person who's very happy with where they're at and they just want marginal improvements, fine. I don't think you need a coach. But if you're like, I want to, jump from one industry to another, you might look into a career coach. If you are someone that is kind of going from individual contributor to manager or leader, you might want a leadership coach. If you're someone who wants someone who could dive more into the specifics of their business model, making sure the numbers work, you might want a business coach. And then of course, executives are asked to do so much. They have so much they have to be responsible for. I think a lot of people can benefit from having an executive coach to either be a thinking partner or stress test strategies, or even just as a mirror. A lot of times I'm with an executive and I'm just reflecting back what I'm hearing, or, helping them build other options so that they, instead of saying, Max, I have to do this because it's the only thing, it's, well, what are 3, 5, 7, 10 other options you have? And with those, find a better way forward. So for your last question of should everyone have a coach, it depends. If you have any questions about coaching, please reach out to me. I don't try to sell people on coaching. I go first and say, tell me about your problems, tell me about your opportunities, and then I try to connect them with the right folks. Sometimes that makes sense for me to say, hey, I think we should probably do a coaching session together. Other times it's referring them to either a consultant, a contractor, therapist, or just saying, actually, you're doing all the stuff you ought to be doing. Just keep it up, and you'll build your confidence, your self-efficacy over time. So long story short, it depends.
That's a good answer. Well, again, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate your time. This is that fun part where I get to look at the camera, which is always so weird because you're looking at yourself. But that's a wrap on another episode of the Transform Tales. Thank you to Transform Labs for letting myself, Brooke Addis, host this. And please consider the transformations in your own life. Thinking back on the discussion we had today, the next chapter in your life might be the best one yet. Keep evolving. Thanks, everyone.
Hell yeah.
That was great.
That was fantastic.